Community Ice Center for the start of the Blues Prospects Showcase. They began today. Alex was in his element. He was out there watching a bunch of the young prospects skating around. I walked in here, T-Bone. I had no idea where Alex was. All I know is that I see his computer right here, and Alex is nowhere to be found. I knew where to find him. He was over by the ice. He comes in afterwards, about 20 minutes after watching them skate around. He's like, guys, I think Dvorský's going to have a big year this year. I'm feeling like 30 goals, 50 assists, an 80-point season. He looks bigger. He looks stronger. So we're hoping to have some of those guys on throughout the show today. Be sure to stay tuned. 11 to 2 right here, your home of the Blues, 101 ESPN. Alex Ferrario, Brandon Kiley, Tanner Hendrickson. Blues season starts right now on 101 ESPN as the Blues are hosting their Prospect Showcase. But that's not where we begin today, Alex.
Oh, no, that's exactly where we begin today, BK.
Because it is still technically the Cardinals baseball season. Last night, some of the veterans came through. Says the counter.
Thursday night football, Prospect Showcase. I don't know where Cardinals fall in play there.
Lance Lynn walks off grabbing his junk a couple of times.
Yeah, he does.
You know that's a good outing for him. 5 innings, gave up just the one earned run, struck out the great Ellie De La Cruz to finish off that 5th inning. It was nice to see that from him. A good performance all around. But he wasn't even necessarily the headliner. It was also Nolan Arenado coming through with a big home run. It was Paul Goldschmidt coming through with a big knock when they needed it the most. They win the game 2-1. They have basically no offense to speak of, but they find a way to win.
Classic Cardinals.
My question to you, Alex, because the Cardinals are doing just enough right now to stay slightly above 500. Are they doing enough, not to convince you, because I know what the answer to that question is, but to convince the front office that it's okay to kind of run it back? Yeah, we'll bring back Steven Matz. We'll bring back Kyle Gibson. We'll bring back Lance Lynn. You know what? It's been a rough year for Goldie, but you look down now and you see what he's done over the last 6 weeks. We'll go ahead and run it back there at first base. We don't have a clear and obvious option for us at first. We'll bring Goldie back. Future Hall of Famer. We got to have him in the lineup. Are they doing just enough down the stretch, Alex, to convince this front office that the best thing for them is to bring the veterans back next season and to tweak the roster around them?
I want everybody to hear and circle the point of that sentence that BK just said. Are they doing enough? No, are they doing enough to convince the front office to run it back? Absolutely they are. Are you kidding me? This front office, we've seen in past years, especially if the team goes down a quote-unquote hot start to finish the year, looks at their roster and says, man, one bad month. That's the difference between us and the playoffs. One bad month, one bad series stretch against the Reds and the Cubs, and we're talking playoffs with this team. And I guarantee you that if the leaders are the ones that are producing in the final stretch of the season, i.e. Paul Goldschmidt, Lance Lynn, Steven Matz, you can bet your bottom dollar that those guys are going to be back, specifically Lance Lynn, because we've talked about how, like, Kyle Gibson makes a lot of sense. You pick up that option. Also makes a lot of sense for this team to look at Lance Lynn and say, yeah, we don't want to rush our young pitchers. As great as Quinn Matthews is looking right now, we know Michael McGreevy shoved in that one game in the majors, but look at what Lance Lynn just did in his last start when he returned. I can absolutely see this front office looking at their group, missing the playoffs by 6 or 7 games, staying above 500 and saying, one bad month. That's all we need. We need to just correct 1 month.
Forget 1 month. Like 2 series.
Yeah.
If you were just better against the Cubs and the Reds, like just flip those series results, boom, you're right there with the Mets and the
just don't be 3-5 against the Reds. Be 5-3 against the Reds, and we're talking about the playoffs.
Hey, a couple of games back right now of the New York Mets for that final spot. By the way, New York Mets playing some really good baseball. They are what the Cardinals hoped that they could be.
Should have got Luis Severino.
Because the Mets were out of it earlier this season, too. They had no reason to believe that they were still in it. We were talking about, do the Cardinals trade for, like, Sean Manaea? Do they go out there and get one of those Cardinal starters? Your guy, Luis Severino.
Yep.
There were players potentially available. Hell, we were talking about, do they trade Pete Alonso at some point close to the trade deadline? Instead, it's been the opposite. They are the team that went on the run, and now they're potentially going to make the postseason. T-Bone, how do you feel about this? Do you think that there's a way for the Cardinals to convince themselves? I'm not saying we would be convinced. We would not. We all agree turnover is necessary. A fresh start is necessary. Do we think that the Cardinals would view it at the end of the season, after seeing some good a good stretch of ball by Paul Goldschmidt, seeing Gibson and Lynn stabilize the rotation the way that they have this year and have not been great, but they've been good enough. Is there a way for them to convince themselves, you know what, let's go ahead and bring these guys back for reasonable deals, and we'll go ahead and piece things together and use our young guys to really reset the roster via trade?
So I think there's only one of those guys that can convince themselves to bring it back and run it back with, and that's Paul Goldschmidt. And I think that's a ownership decision of, well, that's a legacy Cardinal right there. Doesn't he look good with the birds on the bat?
Lance Lynn's not a legacy Cardinal? Are you kidding me?
They let him walk.
The jockstrap grab is what is going to be remembered by Cardinals Nation.
It should have a photo in the Cardinals Hall of Fame.
Statue.
But I think the only one that they can really convince themselves on, hey, we need to run it back, is Paul Goldschmidt. And I think somehow, some way, they'll convince themselves of, oh, look, since August he has a 800 OPS. He's at 863. That's the Goldschmidt of old. He's unlocked the swing. He can get back to that star potential. Nolan Arenado, he's probably been hurt all year. That arm, probably been hurt all year. We can have the cornerstone pillars back for the St. Louis Cardinals. And I think what you'll see them do, they'll run it back with him. I don't think they can convince themselves to run it back with that rotation. But Goldschmidt, I can definitely see them saying, we've got to bring him back on a I don't even know if it'd be reasonable. It'd be a legacy player, like $20 million.
See, I could see them convincing themselves more about Lance Lynn than Paul Goldschmidt, because Lance Lynn, in their eyes, fills a spot that they don't have to worry about. Like, yes, you don't have a first baseman to Paul Goldschmidt's ilk, especially defensively, but I could see the front office being like, we got Alec Burleson, we can get away with it, and if we need to change positions for an Ivan Herrera, we can get away with it. Maybe we'll keep Wilson Contreras healthier if we put him at the first base spot. I could totally see them more with Lance Lynn being like, we don't want to rush Quinn Matthews to the majors or Michael McGreevy or Gordon Graceffo, so let's just keep this rotation. And then when the rogue back injury pops up in the middle of July, well, that's our leeway to get these younger players up here.
Yeah, I think a lot of this comes down to how do they feel about their current core group of position players? How do you feel about Nolan Gorman? How do you feel about Ivan Herrera? How do you feel about Wilson Contreras? How do you feel about Jordan Walker and Alec Burleson and Mason Wynn? Like, all these guys, Lars Nootbaar, who I feel like it just gets forgotten now. How do you feel about these guys that we had talked about coming into the season that I think most fans were at least excited about, even if they didn't totally buy in? I think there were some skeptics on Nolan Gorman and on Lars Nootbaar. Brendan Donovan, who I didn't mention there. I mean, I just mentioned like 10 names that could conceivably next year, it's not crazy to believe they take a step forward, at least like half of them. 5 or 6 of those guys take a pretty meaningful step forward next year, and boom, you hit the ground running. It's like, whoa, okay, the Cardinals really have something going here. But it's hard for me to believe that that's going to happen without other changes around them. And that, to me, is not about necessarily like the veteran leadership or anything like that. It's coaching, man. I need them to be put into positions to succeed. And this is not me calling out specifically the manager, who I want to get to here in just a moment. But the staff, I think, needs reinforcements. And I think there's a likelihood that that's going to happen here. We know that Oli and Descalso both have matching contracts that go beyond this current season. The rest of the staff, based on what I understand, I think they're all free agents at the end of this year.
Yeah.
So there's an easy way to churn through the staff if they really wanted to go in that direction, and I think that's necessary. I think it's natural. I think far too often this organization has been hesitant to make those changes, and I think it's time for them to do exactly that. I do want to spend a little bit of time coming up next on the manager. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. You guys can check us out on YouTube as well. YouTube.com/101ESPN-STL. That's where the Graveyard Chat is off and running. It's good to see people in there today. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the St. Louis Blues are putting on Prospect Camp, the Prospect Showcase over the next couple of days. We're here today. We're hoping to be joined by a couple of those prospects here in studio. So be sure to stay tuned until 6 o'clock. We're going to be broadcasting here at the Centene Community Ice Center. We're talking Cardinals next, though. Has Oli Marmol earned the benefit of the doubt? Might sound strange. We'll make the case for it next year on 101 ESPN.
to more exclusive Blues talk. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
Alongside Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley, and we're going to pull an audible here. We do have the pleasure to be joined by Zach Dean, Blues center. He is here for the Blues Prospect Showcase here at the Centene Community Ice Center. We are broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios here at the Centene Community Ice Center. Zach, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
Good. Yourself?
Doing really well. So we were talking a little bit off air about what you were able to do this summer. You were going through your training up in Ottawa. What does an off-season look like for Zach Dean, whether it's the training on the ice but also off the ice? What do you like to do away from the ice whenever you're getting into your summer off-season mode?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, I'm in the gym and I'm following the program through the Blues, so that helps me out a lot. And then I'm on the ice a few times a week, depending on what point it is in the summer. But other than that, my girlfriend's family, they have a cottage that's about an hour outside of Ottawa, so we're always up there on the boat, surfing, stuff like that, golfing, going up to Mont-Tremblant and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So it's good. We try and get out and do some other things like that.
Okay, I need to know about surfing here because you just said surfing, and this has been one thing. So my wife and I on our honeymoon in 2016, we went to Hawaii, and I was like, I think I'm going to try and go surf. And I went out there, and I ate it immediately. Like, there was no ability to either stand up on the board or get any type of level on there. That is the ultimate core workout.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not doing that kind of surfing, so I don't think I'd be able to do that.
Okay, good.
But, yeah, no, just behind the boat, so you have, like, your wake surf.
Oh, okay, good.
And then you have the rope to pull you up, and then if you're good enough, you can kind of throw the rope in, and you're pretty much just stood behind the boat just surfing. So it's a little bit easier, I would think, than actually surfing.
I thought you were like a pro surfer out here. Like, you're just going through these waves and just, like, straight through. I'm like, damn, Dean, this is impressive.
Yeah, no.
We got rocket power over here. Zach, so I am curious. You now have the full year under your belt with the St. Louis Blues organization. What's your level of comfortability now compared to what it was, this time last year?
Yeah, obviously last year coming in, the only time I was in was development camp last year. So I think that was good before coming into rookie camp and then main camp, just to kind of feel out the facilities and the people in the organization. So I think that was good. And then obviously last year, playing in Springfield, being there, being in talks with the organization, and then getting called up at the end. Obviously I'm more comfortable, but this year I still have to prove myself. So, I mean, that's all my mindset is, and just kind of come in and have a good camp.
So, Zach, what did you make of that first year of pro hockey? Because going from juniors, where you spent 4 straight seasons having success, and then you get a taste of the AHL, then the NHL. How tough was that kind of navigating those waters for you last year?
Yeah, obviously it was tough at times, and I mean, like, everything is different. Junior, you're in a billet family. You're kind of taken care of in a sense. So coming here, driving down last year in August, go to camp, and then having to go to Springfield, find an apartment, while also trying to manage the hockey side of things. That obviously it's hard for someone when you don't really know kind of what you're doing. So that was tough, but I mean, it was fun. It was a really good experience. I loved the guys in Springfield. And I mean, it was good. It was a good first year for me.
Did you live with somebody in the apartment that first year, or were you by yourself?
No, I was alone. Yeah.
Really?
I mean, yeah. I think for me, I like to have my own space.
Makes sense.
Some guys like that. Some guys like to be with other players. But I mean, I think for me, that's just It's just kind of.
I was just thinking, as a 20-year-old trying to apartment hunt in Springfield, Massachusetts, probably not the easiest thing on the agenda, right?
Yeah. No, it was. It was tough. I had my parents. They kind of helped too.
Yeah.
But Springfield was also good. Like, they gave out some information on different apartments that guys have lived in before and stuff like that. So they helped out with that. But yeah, it was, and I had my apartment pretty quick after.
Awesome.
Blues forward Zach Dean joining us here on 101 ESPN. Zach, what did you learn from your experience with the NHL team last year? We've talked about this. There's a Cardinals player by the name of Mason Wynn who got a cup of coffee with them last year, went into the offseason, and he was able to adjust a lot based upon his opportunities that he got. And this year is having, a borderline Gold Glove caliber campaign. What was your experience like? What did you learn from that you were able to apply to your offseason training?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, just getting in those first few games, you try and look at other guys, kind of see what they do on the ice as well as off the ice. I think that's super important in how they kind of handle themselves. But I mean, as far as the play goes in the game, it's a fast game. You just kind of take what you can in from the coaches, the information that they give you, and I mean it's 9 games, so you're just trying to feel it out and then kind of get a feel for coming into next year, and you kind of know what to expect a little bit more.
What's that like too, Zach? Trying to have to adapt to roles in the NHL or in the AHL, because going from juniors, you're a top-line guy, you're playing every single shift, power play, penalty kill, all of them, and then you get to pros, and it's you're kind of isolated into maybe a defensive mindset role, or you're playing one specific style. Is that a difficult transition for somebody from juniors?
Yeah, for sure. But I mean, I think for the style of game that I play, I can play both. I mean, I'm not just a guy that brings offense. I think I bring that grit. I can play PK. I can play wherever. So that's kind of how I would say my game is kind of modeled, anyways. So obviously, at times, I mean, it's always going to be adjustment coming from junior, and you're coming in, and just how everything was beforehand. But I mean, for me as a player, I think I would have had a little bit easier of an adjustment than some guys.
Yeah. Last question that I've got for you: as you head into camp, you've had this entire offseason to train for it. What was one thing? What was a specific thing that you were trying to build upon this offseason? Was there one aspect of your game that you were working on the most?
Yeah, I think just my speed. I think I mean, the game is so fast now, and
Sure.
And I would say every year the game is just going to get faster and faster. So I think that's something now to play in the NHL. You have to have speed. So just working on that on and off the ice, that was something that was one of my main focus, and then obviously just doing all the other little things.
What can you do to improve that? Like, what are some of the things? Take some of our listeners inside of what your training looked like. You want to improve your speed. Who do you go to do that? How do you get to be a faster skater at this point in your career?
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it is technique based too when you're doing stuff on the ice. So you're skating with a skating coach, and it's literally just technique in your skating. So you're just working on how to generate the most power, because I mean, some guys, it's all in your stride and where you push from, what points of your blade you're using and stuff like that. So it's really technical, and people probably don't really understand that from that side of things. So yeah, you're just focusing on little details to try and improve your speed.
So when you get to prospect camp or then training camp, is that the first time you really go through contact in terms of your training versus once you get into the training camp mode?
Well, I mean, in the summer you try and get some scrimmages, some battle skates where you have that contact. You're not just coming in here. And
For sure.
Your first like going into tomorrow now, full on game.
First time taking a body into the middle of the ice.
So, but I mean, it's for me. Normally, it's more towards the end of the summer that you get kind of that contact. I mean, I'm not going to do that all summer long. You kind of need to give your body a little bit of a rest. So yeah,
for sure.
He's Blues forward Zach Dean. We sincerely appreciate his time. We'll have a few of the prospects coming through today as we're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center for the Blues Prospect Showcase. Zach, thanks so much for the time today, man. Good luck during this Prospect Showcase, and we'll see you again at training camp.
Perfect. Thank you.
Absolutely. That's Zach Dean here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, we'll talk about the transfer portal and its influence on college football. We'll do that next here on BK and Ferrario.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Last night, Cardinals pulled out a win 2-1 over the Reds as they even with the Reds in the series. Lance Lynn went 5 innings pitched, 5 hits allowed, 1 earned run against. The Cardinals are now back above 500, and they look to build on that today as they close out this series and hope to win the series against the Reds. Sonny Gray will be trying to do that. He gets the start for the Cardinals today, going up against Jacob Junis for the Reds. First pitch will be at 12:15 from Busch Stadium. If you were just listening, you heard from Zach Dean before the break. Now we're going to hear from another Blue Zach. It's Zach Bolduc coming up next here on BK and Ferrario. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
More Blues talk, more often. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley here on 101 ESPN, your home of the St. Louis Blues. And we're happy to be broadcasting today at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are hosting their Prospect Showcase. And we're happy to be joined now by Zach Bolduc, who's joining us in studio. Zach, last time we talked to you was over the summer as you were coming through. How was your summer? How was all of the training going? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I mean, had a good summer and, worked out. And work out hard, and I'm just excited and ready to go.
We were just talking with you off air, Zach, about the amount of traveling you've been doing in the off season. So I got to know, go-to when you're on an airplane, is it a video or like a movie? Is it video games, or is it just straight to sleep?
I'll go music and probably
music and sleep.
Yeah.
That's my kind of guy right there. You sit down, you put the earbuds in, and you're out cold.
Exactly, yeah.
I like it.
Zach, when you were training this offseason, we talked to you going into it, and you said you want to get a little bit stronger. You were working on specific things. With what you ended up doing this offseason, how do you feel like you accomplished the goals that you were setting out to prepare for this upcoming season?
Yeah, well, my goal was just to be stronger. I mean, I think I didn't want to put too much weight. More weight on me because I don't want to lose my speed or anything. So I feel comfortable at 195, and I think I just got stronger. I didn't get heavier, well, a little bit, few pounds, but I think I got stronger, and that was my main goal. And also I wanted to be better in puck protection and trying to hold on the puck a bit more, so then you can create more offense. So that was the two things I really want to improve this summer, and I think I did it, yeah.
So Zach, when players say that they want to get stronger, is that the area of focus, getting stronger on their skate so that you can't be shoved off of it as easy?
Yeah, exactly. And I think, for sure, that's one part of it.
Yeah.
Also, hold on that puck. I think for me that was the main thing for me. Like if you're stronger, more stable on your skate, I think it's gonna be harder to pick up the puck from you. So. That was the main focus.
For us and for the listeners that aren't familiar with what that training looks like, take us through a day of what your training regimen is. I'm assuming that includes like going to the gym and working out with weights, whatever that may be, and then the on-ice stuff. Like, what are you drilling to be better in those areas of the puck protection? What does that look like for Zach Bolduc?
For a typical day, I would say like I just woke up in the morning around 8. Work out from probably 9 to 10:30, 11. Then I go to skate for an hour or so, and it always depends which time we are in the summer. Like earlier in the summer, it's a bit more skills and about those edges and be stronger on their skates. And more the summer is going on, more I'm trying to get my rhythm, try to skate more. And for me, that was the plan that I had this summer. And for those protection drill with the pucks, I mean, just I've practiced with good players this summer, and we push each other. I think that's the way you got to get better, and I think it really helped me this summer.
How beneficial is that, Zach, to be able to work with, I'm assuming, other NHL players, other pro players in the off season? Because it seems like a lot of guys are all working on similar things.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, everyone has his own thing to work on, but a a lot of guys want to work on their hold on that puck protection, your shooting abilities, and I think if you skate well and you can shoot it and hold on that puck, I think you can play in that league, and you just got to be a bit smart to kind of manage the game and all those stuff. But I think there's a bunch of pros back home in Quebec that we skate with during the summer, and I think that was a good summer for me.
Blues forward Zach Bolduc joining us in studio here on 101 ESPN. You mentioned us off air. You were working in Quebec City this offseason. Who were some of those guys that you were skating with during your training?
I skate with Matt Olivier from Columbus. I work a little bit with Yanni Gould from Seattle. Also Jacob Pelletier, younger guy from Calgary. So these were the main guy that I skate with during the summer. There's a bunch of other guys, 2 guys from the Montreal a little bit too. But we that was the 3 main guys that I skate with.
So Zach, last year was your first year as a pro in the AHL and then the NHL. What were some takeaways from you just about the pro game versus the junior game?
Well, I think you got to manage a game. For me, that was the main thing. When you're kind of stuck and you don't see anything, just don't throw it away or trying to look for a crazy play. Just keep it simple and leave. I think they said leave the fight another day. I think that's how they call it. So if you're not comfortable in that situation, just push that situation and it's gonna come back in a better way for you. And I think that's what I learned a lot last year with Banny in the American League, and when I came up here was also the main thing that we were talking about. So that was it. And also the defensive side of the game, I think I got better, and I still can be better, but I think we got a good coaching staff here to help me.
Is that a tough mindset to break from juniors? Because I would imagine as a junior player, it's not a whole lot of dump it and live to fight another day. It's more, I can make something out of this, because you are playing against younger players. And then when you get to the pros, it turns a little differently for you.
Oh, yeah. It's so much different. I mean, guys are smarter, guys are stronger. And if you do one mistake, they're probably going to score at your hand. So, but back in junior, it was kind of easy, because you know that most of the time that mistake that you did, the goalie was probably going to save it. Something's going to happen. The guy's going to miss it. But guys are so good now that you can't do mistakes in front of them or give them free, breakaways, turnovers. These are dangerous area. And like I said, the guys are skilled and they got good brain.
We're talking to Zach Bolduc here on 101 ESPN for just another couple of minutes. We're live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are hosting their prospect showcase this weekend. When you look at the young players, the amount of young talent that's on the Blues roster right now, I think Doug Armstrong has mentioned there's 12 former first-round picks that are now a part of this group, all kind of growing together. On one hand, that's very exciting because you have so much young talent. On the other hand, as a player that's part of that group, there's a lot of competition between you guys to make this roster. What is your mentality going into this showcase and then going into training camp to try to make this roster on opening night?
I mean, for sure, there's a lot of guys, a lot of contract too. Like I saw those 14 one-way contract and those 9 one-way on defense. So these are things that I don't control. So I just try to focus on things that I control. So the things that I control is just my game, the way I skate, the way I shoot, the way I play defensively. So for me, it's just to. I think I did it well at the end of the last season. So for me, it's just to repeat that and even better. So for me, that's going to be the main focus, and I think it's going to be exciting. I think the future looks bright, and I think Doug is doing a good job to build a championship team for the next few years. Yeah.
So Zach, final one from me. You mentioned Drew Bannister. You had him in the AHL and then, of course, up at the NHL level. What were your takeaways from him as a coach? How did he impact you?
I mean, he's a passionate coach. I mean, he's a guy who's involved behind the bench, and he's not scared to give you feedback right on the bench. So. No, I really like him. I think he's a great coach, and I think he's the right coach for us here.
Zach Bolduc trying to make this team out of camp this year. We appreciate his time joining us here at the Blues Prospect Showcase. Zach, thanks so much for the time today, man. Best of luck. Stay healthy out there. We'll talk with you again soon, my friend.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, Zach.
Zach Bolduc, Blues forward, joining us here on 101 ESPN. Coming up next, looks like we've got another Blues prospect. Dalibor Dvorský going to join us in studio next here on BK and Ferrario.
Wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
With Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. We're happy to be here at the E&B Granite Studios at the Centene Community Ice Center. It's a great day. It means hockey season is officially upon us.
Heck
and we've
yes.
got Dalibor Dvorský, Blues forward prospect, joining us in studio right now. Blues hosting their prospect showcase this week, and we are pleased to be joined by Dalibor Dvorský in studio. Dalibor, appreciate the time, man. How you doing today?
Thanks for having me, guys. I'm doing really good.
Doing great over here as well, and it's good to see you back on the ice. What was this offseason like? We were catching up a little bit off air about what your training was like for the listeners. Bring them in. What's a summer look like with Dalibor Dvorský?
No, I was back home in Slovakia, then I went here to the DEF camp, obviously. Then I went back home again. I practiced, a lot of ice, working out. And, I got to St. Louis August 21st, so I've been here ever since.
How bad have you been just desperate to just get back into hockey action? Because I know development camp was good, but you guys just did one scrimmage, a couple of scrimmages here and there. Now you're actually getting into where you'll go with a scrimmage against other NHL prospects this weekend, and then training camp, and then preseason games.
Yeah, no, I missed the games a lot. I mean, I haven't played a game for, I think it's 5 months now.
Wow.
Since we went out of playoffs with Sudbury.
Yeah.
So I'm really looking forward for all the games and getting back into the game. Yeah, into games.
Do you have to temper down that competition level? Season ends and then it's you take a little bit off and then you go back into training and it's okay, well, I got to find this balance of that aggression that I put out on the ice every time.
I mean, we do a lot of scrimmages back home with my friends because there is a bunch of hockey players practicing there where I live, so we do a lot of games. But I mean, it's not a real game, right? It's just between each other, like friends. But I'm happy that the real game starts now.
I've done those pickup games against friends, though, and sometimes they get a little intense every once in a while.
A little bit. I feel like your games are probably a little different than his.
But that's very true. There's not talent.
Dalibor, everybody has something that they're working on the offseason. I know the cliche answer is you want to get better in every area. Of course, every player does, right? But for you, going into this offseason, I'm sure you had some kind of a goal as to what you wanted to accomplish. How do you feel like you accomplished that goal, and what specifically was it, if you want to share with the audience?
Well, I wanted to get stronger and more dynamic, like I do every summer, and I think I've done that really well. I feel much stronger. I feel faster on the ice, so I think it was a really good offseason for me.
So, Dalibor, you mentioned during the commercial break that you've kind of been training with some guys that have gotten a taste of the pro level, maybe some guys that haven't. Have you kind of discussed with them about what that next step looks like, what you go up against when you get to the next level?
Yeah, of course. I talked to a lot of guys that play even in the NHL or pro, and they gave me some advices and stuff, what's the difference. And I practiced a lot with Martin Pospisil back home, and he played in Calgary last season. So those guys, they gave me some advices and stuff, so it was nice to talk to them. I like to be with them almost every day.
We were talking to Zach Bolduc just a little bit ago about the number of former first-round picks that are now a part of this roster and the competition that is expected to take place over the next couple of weeks now with this camp and then, of course, training camp as well. What is that like for a guy like yourself who's battling for a spot on this roster? I would imagine your goal is to make the roster on opening night. What is the next few weeks like for you mentality-wise as you get ready to get into this competition?
I just want to be as best as I can on the ice, right? That's all I can do. Just focus on myself and just at the team to help the team win where I play, and just do my absolute best every time I'm on the ice. That's all I can do, right?
Dalibor, we talked about this during development camp when you joined us, just about when you look around and you see these other former first-round draft picks, and now that the Blues are starting to gather a lot of these guys that are under the age of 23, former first-round picks, what's that do excitement level for you of what the future outlook looks like with this Blues team?
No, the future looks really bright. There is a lot of really good players here, even on the rookie showcase for the Blues, and the main team obviously as well. So I look forward for what the future holds.
Dalibor, you mentioned you got here a few weeks ago. You're staying in a house with a couple of the other prospects as well. Take us inside of that house. What the last few weeks has been like for you guys as you're trying to make your way through life as early 20-year-olds in the city of St. Louis together.
It was really fun we moved to the hotel now where all the guys stay, so we moved out of the house yesterday. I lived with Michael Buchinger, Simon Robertson, and Dylan Peterson, so it's been really fun with those guys. They're great people. We had a lot of fun, we practiced a lot, work out a lot, so it's been great to spend time with them the last 3 weeks.
So what else are you guys doing? Away from hockey, you guys, obviously you have a ton of time where you're working out, you're getting on the ice and all of that. But away from that, what are the things that you guys were spending the majority of your time doing?
Indulging yourself, gooey butter cake, toasted ravioli, I would imagine.
Yeah, we've been cooking pretty much as well. And then watching some shows, playing poker, blackjack.
Nice.
We've been out watching movies, just hanging out with each other. Nothing too special, but it's been a great time.
Okay, out of the four, who's the best cook?
Petey for sure.
Is he?
Yeah,
Who's the worst
he's
poker
the
player?
oldest. Petey's the oldest, and he's the best cook for sure.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Out of the four of you, who is the worst poker player? Like, you immediately go into a game and you know that guy
I'm
is
targeting
going to be the
him.
first one out.
Probably me.
Oh, really? Oh, no.
Man, you thought about that for a minute, too.
No, I mean, the first game, definitely me. I lost totally.
Did you have much experience playing poker
no,
previously?
Not too much, no. Okay, but the second game we played, I actually got pretty far. So right now, well, Robbie is the best for sure.
Is
so
he?
that's a no-brainer. And then, well, at the start it was definitely me. And now, yeah, we gotta play again to see, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, but I don't have too much experience, so I'm just learning.
Yeah, but you know what? Without the
I'm starting my
experience,
career.
I like it, Dalibor. You just kind of said, I'm going to go aggressive right away with this and just try and win the most money possible. That's the way to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. We don't play for big money, thank God.
Small things when you're living together, right?
Yeah.
So,
That's good.
Dalibor, as you look at what the next couple of weeks are like for you, as you get through Prospect Showcase this weekend and then training camp, for some of the listeners, take us through what this is like for you as a young guy. What are you focusing on now? I know you said you just want to be the best player possible, but what are some of the things in particular that you want to be able to show over the next few weeks?
I mean, show the things I'm good at, right? And I feel like I got to be pro off the ice, take care of myself, and then just be a leader on the ice, lead the guys by example, and also, just do the things I'm good at on the ice, right? Like to help the team win.
Well, and this is going to be the first opportunity to really be around all of these pros, too, the NHL guys at training camp for you, which I have to imagine is going to be an opportunity for you to just take everything in from St. Louis Blues players.
Now I talked about the rookie camp, but at the main camp, I'm going to try to learn so much from those guys.
Yeah.
They have so much experience. They are big players, so I'm just going to try to, learn a lot from them and to, like I said, be as good as player I can on the ice.
Do you have any relationships with any of those guys?
I talked to a few guys.
Have you?
Yeah, I talked to a few of them, and they seemed like really good guys. So
Awesome.
I'm looking forward for the training camp, but the rookie camp is now, so I'll focus at that, and then after,
Well, and the best part about it, too, Dalibor, is this weekend you guys are going up against, I know they're prospects, but they're prospects on the city of St. Louis Blues fans' rivals in Minnesota and Chicago. So that's a perfect way to just get more excited for the upcoming season going up against those two teams.
Exactly. No, I even know a few guys in Chicago. So
do you?
Yeah. So it's going to be really fun to play them, and the rivalry is there as well, so that's even better.
That's awesome. Dalibor Dvorský, we are excited to see you back on the ice. It's good to see you back here in the city of St. Louis once again as well. Thanks so much for hopping on with us today in studio. We appreciate the time as always. Best of luck. Stay healthy out there, man.
Thank you, guys.
Absolutely. That's Dalibor Dvorský. Appreciate his time joining us here on 101 ESPN. We'll certainly have more prospects over the course of the rest of the day, potentially here on 101 ESPN as they're going through their Blues Prospect Showcase this weekend. BK and Ferrario broadcasting live today from 11 to 2 out here at the Centene Community Ice Center. Alex, this is a good group of young players that the St. Louis Blues have been able to assemble. We talked to Bolduc. We talked to Zach Dean. Now we got Dvorský in here as well. This is the group that Doug Armstrong is trying to build around. This is what they wanted to accomplish, and now you add in Holloway, you add in Broberg as well. There's plenty of reason why Blues fans should be excited moving forward about what they're trying to build.
Absolutely. And, I mean, just take away what we just heard from three guys that are going into this camp that recognize the competition that's in front of them with Dean, with Bolduc, and Dvorský. And what I find interesting is all three guys are competing against different groups of players. Like Dean's competing against guys like Sundqvist and Foxa and Texier as a bottom six forward. Bolduc's fighting against guys like Dylan Holloway and guys that are going to be playing in the middle six of your wing goal-scoring opportunities. And then we just talked to a guy who might be one of the most interesting storylines going into this upcoming campus.
I think is the number one storyline.
He and the power play quarterback, in my opinion, are the two biggest storylines for this camp. And this guy's going to be going up against guys like Pavel Buchnevich and Braden Shen to impress. I think all of these guys said the same thing of what this offseason looked like for them in terms of adding strength, not just muscle, but ability to stay on to pucks. They all talked about how they focused on what makes them best, and they all recognized that, look, yes, it's a competition, but I also have to just make sure I play my style of game. And what I think is going to be impactful about that is their style of game is something that the Blues have been lacking for the last 3 to 4 years.
I got to say, the number one thing that stands out immediately when especially Bolduc and Dvorský, and we talked about this last time that we talked to them, Alex, out here at the 17 Community Ice Center, they're just big dudes.
Yeah.
Like, they walk in, and listen, I'm not like the biggest guy in the world, but I'm like 6 foot, $180, whatever, right?
$180.
They make you look small. Like, we had somebody on the YouTube chat. I didn't appreciate it, frankly.
What'd they say?
But they said Dvorský makes BK look tiny, and they're not wrong. But I didn't need anybody else to mention it on the YouTube chat. YouTube.com/101ESPN They are guys that immediately come in and, like, they have NHL level physical attributes already.
Yeah.
And that's something that is not always the case. Sometimes there is an adjustment period from a speed and physicality standpoint. There's always an adjustment, but I don't think that's going to be it for Dvorský or Bolduc specifically.
Yeah, I don't think so either. I think the hardest part for them is going to be what Bolduc said, because both of these guys have...
I loved that he said that, by the way.
I mean, Bolduc is fresh off of it, so he, of course, has that NHL experience. So does Dean. But Dvorský is coming from playing in the Swedish Hockey League, which, like, you were playing against men over there, and then you go to juniors. So you've had the best of both worlds in terms of when you make a mistake, it's going to go in the back of your net. But in junior hockey, you can make those mistakes because you are able to dominate the competition on the ice. That's going to be the trials and tribulations of what Dvorsky's going to deal with, of recognizing when do you make this mistake or when do you make this decision when you don't make this decision. But it sure as heck seems like all of these guys understand how to go about that, how to approach that, and it's finding the right space of ice. And our good buddy JR, the Athletic Blues insider, just texted me, Bolduc is going to be wearing the C for the prospects this weekend.
Oh, wow.
So I think that's also very important to take into consideration. They view, which makes sense because he's played probably the most NHL games. You got a guy who is superior in terms of experience that they're putting in charge of the younger players, and now you take that group, if they have success this weekend against Chicago and Minnesota, and put it into training camp. And I think that's going to be huge for them.
Yep. I want to see what they look like.
I do too.
I want to see, like, this week is really cool. The prospect showcase, I'm glad they're putting this on. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to diminish anything that's going to take place this weekend. But for us, really, the value is in training camp and seeing what these dudes look like against 30-year-olds.
Yep.
Seeing what Dvorský looks like when you've got him on a rush line and it's Robert Thomas and Braden Shan and Radek Faksa and Alex Texier and Dalibor Dvorský.
Yeah.
Like, how do you compare? Are you clearly and definitively better than other dudes that are a part of that group, a part of that competition? If the answer is no, if you're not clearly and definitive, it's like the clear and obvious thing for a catch in the NFL, right? If it's not clear and obvious, it's not going to be a rule to catch. If it's not clear and obvious that he is better than the other center options for them on the second line center, they'll probably send him down.
Yeah.
He can't be a tie. It's got to be that dude gives us the best chance. And if that ends up being the case, they're going to bring him out of camp with them. I'm hoping for that, man. I think it would be great for this team. It'd be great for this fan base. But you mentioned the mistakes. That's something we also have to be prepared for.
Absolutely.
If Dvorský or Bolduc, whoever the guys are, make this roster with very limited or no NHL experience, I remember a play that Bolduc made last year towards the end of the season, and he ended up getting benched afterwards because they were still in the midst of that playoff race, or allegedly a playoff race.
Whoa,
where
it was a playoff race.
He just he threw the puck to the middle of the ice, and it ended up going back in their net. And I'm guessing that's the play that he's talking about that he can't make. That's going to happen. The goal is as a coach, how do we decrease the amount of times that happens? And when it happens, can you learn from it and not make the same mistake again?
Yeah.
Those are the things that they've got to focus on this year. And I would like to see that because it helps them improve, not just for the here and now, but also 2, 3, 4 years from now. That pays dividends.
And that's where Bannister comes into play. And Bannister comes into play. And we talked with him on Monday about this in terms of making sure that you're best suited to grow the younger players, but also focus on the veterans that are here to win. And what Bannister told us was, look, throughout my time in the juniors and in the AHL and now the NHL, my goal has always been, how do I get the player to where he wants to go? He's got an open line of communication, which is eerily similar to how Craig Berube coached this Blues team for the longest time, where the players felt comfortable talking to him. But Bannister's mindset, from an 18-year-old who's in junior hockey all the way up to a 35-year-old who wants to win the cup, is how do I get the best for you in this situation? So when Bolduc made that mistake, and there's a couple of them that I thought of, because the one that I thought of when you brought it up was when he had fallen down in the corner of the ice.
Oh, yeah.
I think it was against the Predators, and it went the other way and turned into a breakaway, and they scored the goal. But Bolduc went back out there the next shift, or Bolduc went back out there the next game. And when you're doing that, that's how the player says, okay, I screwed up, but how do I make that better? Rather than if you do believe you're a Stanley Cup contender, which I don't think anybody does here in St. Louis, you don't play that player again. You say, nope, you're going back down to the minors. And then there's the ability to stunt the growth development.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. I'm going to let the text line get the final word on this from the 618. Guys, I think the Blues are a playoff team this upcoming season. Many are selling them short, but they're going to be a playoff team because they have superb talent. There's that one. And then this one, maybe more importantly, most lessons aren't taught. They're learned. And that, to me, is something that I personally subscribe to. I subscribe to the idea, the notion that it's better to learn by doing.
Yep.
And as you fail, the greatest lessons come in failure. We've all done that on the radio side of things. Now, this is obviously much less public, much lower stakes than a billion-dollar industry where you're playing professional sports.
True.
But, dude, I failed spectacularly time and time and time again early on in my radio career and continue to do so today. And you learn a lot through those failures, right? You through the miserable broadcasts, that's where you learn and you say, I'm not doing that again.
Yep.
Or you watch somebody else do it that does it the wrong way, and you're like, oh, wow, I wonder if I'm doing some of those same things, and I don't notice it. So you can grow through some of that. So I think that's really valuable for these guys as well.
And look no further than where the Blues are at right now and where they're trying to go. I mean, the guy that is expected to be a 100-point player for the Blues and Robert Thomas this season, that dude made the team as a rookie as an 18-year-old that won the Stanley Cup and was benched in the playoffs because he made a mistake. But you learned from the mistakes, and now you go on and you become the player that they're focusing on moving forward.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Shout out to the Blues for helping us out with Zach Dean, Zach Bolduc, and Dalibor Dvorský, getting all three of those guys in studio over the last 45 minutes or so. If you guys missed any of those conversations, be sure to check them out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. They are all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Coming up next, Grant is back in studio for us today. Grant Francis doing a great job for us. We've had to move a couple of things around. And coming up next, we're going to get to questions and answers. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Questions and answers is next here on 101 ESPN.
to more exclusive Blues talk. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring. You've got questions. We may have the answers. Maybe. It's BK and Ferrario's questions and answers.
Presented by Window World St. Louis.com. Simply the best for less.
314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line for questions and answers. If you guys have any questions, get them in right now on the Air Comfort Service text line or on YouTube, youtube.com/101ESPN STL. That's where the graveyard chat is off and running. All right, from the 314, guys, would you lock in 35 goals for Jordan Kyrou this season or roll the dice and hope for more? If you could lock it in today, press the button, you guarantee 35 goals for Jordan Kyrou, or you press your luck and you could get 50 goals this year.
I don't think 50's coming. And this is coming from a guy who thinks everything's possible for the Blues. I would lock in 35 goals because if you're telling me I have 35 goals from him, that means that I potentially have another guy who could score 30 because I think Booch is that guy. Maybe Robert Thomas could be that guy if he's going to get to 100 points. And then you're talking about more depth of scoring. So 35 goals, absolutely. I think that's a huge success for Jordan Kyrou.
Yeah, I think I would lock that in. I think if you can lock that in, and my expectation is he's probably floating between the first and second line. If I can lock in 35 goals, I think that's you have to have somebody at the NHL nowadays to score 35 plus in a season. If I can lock at least one guy in and then kind of roll the dice with Booch or whoever else you may think has that capability. I know Ferrario's big on Neighbors for 30, but I would say I would lock in the 35 from Kyrou.
If you guaranteed me Kyrou gets 35 goals and Neighbors gets 25, I think the Blues make the playoffs. If you told me today you lock those two things in, and I'm pressing my luck with everything else, I think the Blues probably make the playoffs this year.
I'm with you. I don't think it has anything, and I know last year the offense was so bad. I think the offense is going to be better because you have depth of scoring. I think your playoff hopes come down to how good your defense is, and that's why I think the most interesting player for this upcoming season. I'm not going to put the pressure and say like he's who? Yeah, Broberg. I'm not going to say that he's the pivotal piece because I think there are other things that play into that, but he is the most interesting player this season because of his element.
I don't know if I would say they become a lock for the playoffs if that happens, because for me, there's two other things that need to happen. One is, what does their special teams look like? I don't think they can be as bad as they were special teams on the power play.
If Kyrou has 35 and Neighbors has 25, the reason why I think that is part of it is because of that probably means they were pretty good on the power play.
And that is possible. But we'll see. I mean, he had only 8 power play goals a year ago, did Kyrou. And 2 years ago, or last year, 2 years ago now, he had 11 goals in double digits. And then the other one for me is the defense. You know, I could totally see where maybe Leddy has a step back from where he was a year ago. And then you're looking at Broberg. Okay, well, can you become that guy that takes that step forward? Also, what about Matt Kessel? Can Kessel have another season like he had last year in a rookie sample size? So that's the two things for me.
I do think we're overlooking a guy like Ryan Suter, who is just stable as a veteran defenseman, because the veteran defensemen you've relied on in the past have been Krug and Leddy and Falk, who have been fine, but like Scandella was your 6th defenseman last year. And now you got a guy who just played for a team that barely or nearly made it to the Stanley Cup final.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line from the 314. Guys, who do you like most to make it to the World Series out of the American League and the National League? As of today, what would be your World Series matchup? In the NL, for me, I still like the Phillies or the Padres. I would go with one of those two teams, and push the game to shove, I would probably bet on the Phillies to make it. They would be my National League team. I think the American League feels wide open to me.
Yeah. I like the Padres. I think they've got that special run towards the second half that benefits a team in the postseason. I don't like a team like the Phillies or the Dodgers that look unbeatable once you get into the playoffs, because we all know how that happens. I kind of like the Houston Astros in the American League again, unfortunately.
Yeah, they were the one for me because they've got pitching, and I think Verlander got rocked on Sunday Night Baseball last week.
Yeah, but he's like a postseason guy where he's going to perform.
I'm not worried about him. Valdez has been unbelievable. I think he's had in the last 5 to 7 starts, I think he's had 2 no-hitters in the 7th inning, which is crazy. They've got a decent bullpen. They've got the offense that's starting to play better, and I think they just got Kyle Tucker back, if I remember correctly. I like Houston out of the AL, and it's so interesting. I think it's the Padres because I trust their bullpen more than the Diamondbacks. Padres and Diamondbacks are currently slated to play in the first round. I think the winner of that series is getting to the World Series out of the National League. I've lost faith in the Phillies because of their second half kind of struggles, and then I just don't believe in the Dodgers. I don't think they've got a rotation.
I don't think the Dodgers get out of the first round.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you. I mean,
unless Tommy Edman takes
the toughest part for those
land.
teams that get the bye, unbelievable.
3 home runs, 2 games.
The toughest part that is going to get the Dodgers and Phillies to make it there is that bye, because that's what typically slows down your offense. Because they need more. They need like 3 to 5 games.
I disagree wholeheartedly on the Dodgers. The toughest part for them is I don't know who's pitching.
Well, that's what I was getting to. Is you need like 3 to 5 games to kind of recover from the bye, because you kind of lose the timing from having that off period. And I think that's what we've seen over the last couple of years. So you need your pitching to carry you through that that 5-game set in the DS. And I'm with you. I don't think the Dodgers have it. I think the Phillies are better positioned to get out of the first round.
Yeah, that's where I'm at as well. I would go for me if I was to pick my World Series matchup today. I would probably go Phillies versus the Astros as well.
And you call yourself a Royals fan.
Come on, man. That's where I thought you were going.
Bobby Witt Jr.
I wish I knew for sure that Vinny Pasquantino was going to be back. If I knew for sure that he's going to be back and he's going to be 100% by the time that we get to the postseason.
He's Italiano.
What is his injury?
I think it was like a broken thumb or something.
I couldn't remember.
He'll be fine.
But it's a tough injury to overcome. There's not a lot of time left at this point to get back and to get
the minor league seasons are wrapping up, so there's no rehab.
It's going to be tough for them. But, I mean, they're playing really well. Last night they had a really big game in New York, and it came down to the wire, went to extra innings. Like, they are the kind of team that could surprise some people once we get to October. But can they beat the Astros in a 7-game series? I just don't see it, man. It's going to be really tough. All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Last question here from the 618. Guys, did you see the story about the Pac-12 adding 4 teams after this season? What do you think of it? Do you think the Pac-12 could actually survive now? So if you guys missed this story last night, Oregon State and Washington State currently comprise the 2-man Pac-12. That is the entirety of the conference as of today. Soon, it will also include Boise State, Colorado State, San Diego State, and Fresno State. So you're up to 6 teams in the conference. You have to have at least 8 to be recognized a conference by the NCAA. This is expected to start in 2026. So 2 years from now, they will have this conference together. So they need to add 2 more teams. Do you guys think this is going to work? And who do you think would make the most sense to be those other 2 teams? I think UNLV has to be one of them, most likely. I think that's got to be one of the others. And then from there, I don't know who you would get as your 8th. I don't know that there's an obvious one to me.
Yeah, I think they're going to survive because clearly if these 4 teams are leaving the Mountain West, they see value in going to the Pac-2, Pac-12.
Yeah.
Because I was shocked when I saw this news last night. I was originally shocked, but then reading more about it, they clearly believe that the Pac-12 is something that's going to survive and they can get a good TV deal. I agree UNLV's probably the first one that they need to talk to. The second one's the one that I just don't know who you go to because UNLV makes sense because it's a big market, you know? And if I'm UNLV, I wonder if they're going to try and hold out to try and get into another Power 4 conference. But this is probably their best first step towards that. Maybe San Jose State is one that you look at. Get another decent-sized market in California. If not them, I don't know where you go. Like,
do you consider, like, if you're Stanford or Cal, who are currently in the ACC? I don't know if people are aware of that, but they're currently in the ACC. Obviously, the Atlantic Coast Conference has Stanford, and it doesn't make any sense to me. But whatever. Stanford and Cal. To answer your question,
yes. If I'm Stanford, I consider it.
Are currently in the ACC. If I'm those two schools, I probably get on the phone with the Pac-12, otherwise known as Washington State and Oregon State, and say, hey, listen, we'll make the jump back. We'll go ahead and make this work. Because for them, like, what does it get you to be in the ACC right now? Technically more money. But over time, are you actually spending more with all of the travel and everything?
And it's pretty evident that the Pac-12 believes, like you guys just mentioned, that there's going to be a future here. So if I'm a team that doesn't know what my future looks like in another conference, I would be jumping on the phone immediately and saying, can I get in?
A couple of people brought up teams from the Big 12. I just don't know if you're jumping from the Big 12 right now. I think that conference has salvaged itself. I don't know if you're jumping from the Big 12 to the Pac-12, but if they did decide to do that, I mean, Utah, Arizona, Arizona State, BYU. I think Houston could make some sense for them as well. Those teams could all make some sense. Yeah, Colorado as well. for the Pac-12. I just don't know if you're jumping from that conference to the Pac-12. I think that conference is better. The Big 12 is already.
I'm with you. I think when you look at the ACC, it's what makes it really tough that you're Stanford and Cal and probably wish they stayed in the Pac-12 at this point, because it's clear the ACC is about to implode because Clemson and Florida State are trying their hardest to get out of that conference, and they're stuck. They can't get out. Legally, they've been blocked from doing so. So it makes me think Stanford and Cal can't get out of that conference right now unless it really goes belly up. But I think it would make sense for those teams to leave because the ACC is unstable compared to the Big 12. I'm 100% with you. They've stabilized, and they actually feel like they have a direction moving forward. The ACC's like on their hands and knees begging.
They're the third best power conference right now in terms
agree.
of what the future looks like. Yep. The ACC, there's so much uncertainty. I think the Big 12 was smart in that they recognized, okay, we're not going to be one of the Power Two. It's the Big Ten and the SEC. We get that. The ACC was trying to we're going to be the third of this group. No, you're not. You're going to be the secondary conference beyond those two. And until you recognize that, you're always going to be in this questionable position of where do things stand for us. The Big 12 understood we need to take a little bit of a step back. We're not those two conferences. Let's take the leftovers. It was a really smart move by them, and I think they positioned themselves well accordingly. The other thing for the Pac-12 that I would find interesting is there's a couple of conferences that do this for basketball only, where they will allow for a basketball-only membership. If I'm the Pac-12, I would be looking to teams like Gonzaga, St. Mary's, etc. Those teams that are basketball power.
Basketball, yeah.
Yeah, if you can get those schools to join your conference, now you've got the Boise State presence for the football side of things, and potentially Gonzaga
would
St.
make the
Mary's,
most
etc.
sense
for the basketball presence. And it also helps those schools now that they have a bigger, quote-unquote, conference than the West Coast Conference or whatever it is that they're in right now. So I think it could make sense from both sides, and then you allow yourself the opportunity to have a presence in both of the biggest sports in America.
It'll be interesting because I think, if I remember correctly, Gonzaga's had talks with the Big 12, I think it is, of potentially moving there. It'll be interesting to see because I think you've got right now, to your point on the ACC, I think you've got the ACC and Pac-12 trying to fight for that second tier.
Right.
And I think only one of them will probably survive.
With Tanner Hendrickson and Alex Ferrario, I'm Brandon Kiley. Coming up in about 15 minutes or so, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters with some of the biggest storylines heading into week 2 of the NFL season, including tonight's Thursday night game. One that should be actually pretty compelling tonight. So we'll get into that coming up here in just a little bit. But next, has Oli Marmol earned the benefit of the doubt? That might sound crazy to you, given the fact that the Cardinals are all but eliminated from postseason contention. We'll make the case potentially for you next year on 101 ESPN.
to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
I know this sounds strange. I'm going to make the case that Oli Marmol deserves the benefit of the doubt.
That sounds strange. That's like T-Bone saying he can go out there and win a game for the Cardinals today.
That I couldn't do, but I could hit Helsley's fastball.
Well, that would win the game for the Cardinals.
Let's think about this for a second. You know how many teams in the National League have scored fewer runs this year than the Cardinals?
Ooh. 3.
I think it's just one.
It's one. It's the Miami Marlins. They're the only team in the National League
Take that, Skip.
that has scored fewer runs this year than the St. Louis Cardinals. This offense stinks, man. And is that partially Oli Marmol's fault? I suppose you could make that case. I personally would not. I think it's on the players, generally speaking. I don't think he has the talent to be able to do it this year. So he's finding a way to stay above 500 despite.
They didn't have a talent that you thought was going to be as good as the 2004 Cardinals offense?
Listen, when your veterans fall off a cliff and Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt aren't what I expected them to be,
Who could have seen that coming, right?
Literally, who could have? You certainly didn't predict that Nolan Arenado and Paul Goldschmidt would fall off a cliff.
Quit being a fraud.
I mean, did anybody sit there and think Paul Goldschmidt looked like an MVP last year at the end of the season?
No, but it was a month. I thought that there would potentially be some regression. I didn't think he was going to suddenly become a below league average hitter. But if you did,
I absolutely
God
did.
bless him.
That's why if you look at my top 20 Cardinals, most important Cardinals, Goldie wasn't even on the list.
Okay. That's just not true. On the rotation side of things, do you guys know where the Cardinals rank in terms of starting rotation ERA in the National League?
That one.
How many teams do you think have a worse ERA from their rotation this season than the Cardinals?
I'm going to say Miami, Colorado, and that's it. So I'm going to say they've got the third worst rotation ERA in the NL.
One other.
Is it Washington?
Nope, it's a playoff team, actually. Arizona. Arizona has a terrible rotation ERA.
Yeah.
They've had a lot of injuries.
Jordan Montgomery's
and
a bullpen
Montgomery
pitcher.
was horrific for them this season. So those are the 3 teams in the National League that have been worse than the Cardinals from a rotation ERA perspective. I say all of that to say this. Despite having a bottom 2 offense in the National League and a bottom 4 starting rotation ERA in the National League, Oli Marmol has this team in a position where they are, as of today, a game above 500. If you looked at their Pythagorean record, and I know people like take it or lose it, leave it, whatever. Their expected win-loss record, which is what that means, is 65-80, based upon their run differential specifically. 65-80. They are 73-72 instead. They're 8 games above what their expected record should be. In other words, their expected record is that they are as bad as they were last year. Every bit as bad. Shouldn't that reflect semi-positively about the manager? That he's been able to get you to that place? And if the answer is no, like, all right, but then what is the role of the manager? Like, if the manager is not here to help you win and eke out some of these close games, what is he here for exactly? I was told last year, if you had a better manager, they'd be winning some of these games. Well, this year they are winning some of these games, so doesn't that have to reflect in part on the manager? Alex, what would you say?
I do think it should reflect on the manager because, like, this team offensively has been terrible this season, and that should equate to this team being in the conversation for one of the top 3 picks in the upcoming draft. And, like, we're still wondering where this team's going to fall in line by the end of the season. Just as much as you give the slice of the pie in terms of when the success is there or when there's lack of success on the offensive side, you look at the player. I do think you also have to look at the manager and finding ways to not plateau off or not just dip awfully. Because last year when things got bad, it got bad for a long stretch. And that's when I'd look at the manager and be like, you got to figure out a way to get these guys in the right mindset. When they've struggled this season, it's been a couple of games. They've gotten it right. They've won a couple of games, and then they've fallen flat again. It's never been like this 7, 8, 9, 10-game losing streak with the exception of
the beginning of the season was awful.
Yeah,
but
and
I
we
also
even
think
said
you can make a case that actually reflects well on him. Not that they lost a bunch of games. They were 15-24. Obviously, that part of it reflects really poorly on the manager. But what reflects well is they were able to stay afloat and got themselves back into contention. Mm-hmm. And that's the job of the manager, is to make sure that that room does not fracture, to have the pulse on the clubhouse. And I'm not telling you that Oli Marmol's the best manager in baseball. I think my main point on this is the manager, generally speaking, is overrated in terms of what kind of an impact they can have on a roster, either direction. So I'm not necessarily keeping for them to, like, got to extend him again. Like, he did so well this year that the first extension wasn't even that's not what I'm saying here. What I'm saying is, like, does he deserve the benefit of the doubt a little bit? And maybe if you made changes around him with the roster, with the front office, with the minor league development system, could Oli actually be the right guy in place? And we just haven't seen him with the right talent in place.
And that's the part, too, where it's like, if you sit here and say, like, yeah, Oli has to go, then you're going to go out there and get another manager who's going to be stuck in the same spot. I think he has been handcuffed somewhat in terms of the lack of development system throughout this organization that has the ability to make sure that players are developing correctly. I think he has lacked the ability in terms of enough coaches throughout the minor league system to get guys ready to take that next step. And at the major league level, he has lacked the talent to get them through. Some of that's on the players not developing properly, i.e. Nolan Gorman, Jordan Walker, that were supposed to help carry you. But I'd also look at the organization and say, if Oli had the proper staff in the minors prepping these guys to get to the next level, are we still talking about this? Because it is very obvious people are talking. The Cardinals are so behind in terms of the minor league system, making sure that these guys are ready to go.
Yeah, I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt, and I think I'm with you guys I think if he just had a better roster around him, then you would see Oli Marmol flourish as the manager. And I go back to, I don't remember what game it was, but there was a game, I think it was the one against Milwaukee, where he just pulled all the right strings to where he is doing all the tactical things that are needed to do, where it's pinch hitting with Luke and Baker late in the game, going to Jojo Romero, and then going to Andrew Kittredge at the right spots to get them into, or get them out of a jam late in that game. I think his willingness to adjust to some of his early, think back to 2022. You don't win 90 games by accident, you know? And look, I'm not trying to say Oli Marmol is the reason they won 90 games in 2022, but he pulled all the right strings that season. I don't think we had a ton of gripes about what he was doing then, but I also can look at who the manager or what his style was in 2022 and point to things that Oli Marmol has been willing to adjust in 2024. Ryan Helsley, a true legitimate closer.
And your bullpen's been really good for a long time.
Exactly. Not being thrown into, high leverage spot, 7th inning, Ryan Helsley comes into the game. He's willing to adjust to some of that. Kind of going this year more of the, okay, let's go to a defensive lineup first. You know, let's stick with Siani in center field. Let's make sure we're sticking with our best defensive alignment for as long as possible. And sometimes you could argue maybe a little too long, but he still stuck with it, had the idea of, here's what we're going to do. We're going to stick with, for the most part, a starting lineup every single day. Here's our starting 9 until we get to a point where we can no longer do that. I think he deserves the benefit of the doubt, and you haven't seen the panic in the Cardinals in terms of what they're doing on the field with his managerial decisions. You haven't seen him go for, Walker was 0 for 4, let's pull him out early. Or he did early on with Walker, but he didn't do that with a Burleson or a Wynn. He said, these guys are going to be here, let them play, and we'll see how it goes.
We got a couple of texts, one on the Air Comfort Service text line that said Nolan Gorman would have over 30 home runs if Oli kept playing him.
He did keep playing.
I was going to say,
talking about
this
guys?
is the same conversation that people said, well, the Cardinals didn't play Dylan Carlson enough and they couldn't trade him until they see what he's got. I don't understand why we've used some of this and say, like, he's not playing him. Do I have gripes about the Jordan Walker situation? Absolutely. Do I have gripes about Ivan Herrera not getting more starts behind the plate? Sure. But sitting here and saying Nolan Gorman needed more at-bats, and if another manager was here that we'd have a different type of player, that's just inaccurate. Jordan Walker, although he has struggled a lot at the major league level, go to the minors. He was also struggling in the minors. Pick your manager that you like around Major League Baseball and put him in the Cardinals. I think we're having the exact same conversations because the players have struggled. Any manager is not going to find this. They're not going to unlock this untapped potential of Paul Goldschmidt and Nolan Arenado from their first 4 months of the season where they struggled and say, that's what's missing. Maybe they do it with a couple of pitchers. Maybe they find that magic recipe with one of your younger hitters. But let's also not overlook the fact that Alec Burleson has been awesome most of this season, and Mason Wynn have been awesome pretty much all season. The manager's going to get some credit for that if you're just going to sit here and say, well, he should be the reason why Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman have struggled. Okay, well, then what's your excuse for Mason Wynn and Alec Burleson?
Do you guys think Bruce Bochy is a good manager?
No, what's he ever done?
Yeah.
Like, we all agree, right? Yes. The answer is yes to that question.
What's Texas doing right now?
Here's what he's done in his last 5 seasons as a manager in terms of the total wins. Last 5 seasons as a major league manager. 64, 73, 77, 90, won the World Series, 70. So in 4 of his last 5 full seasons as a major league manager, he has won 77 or fewer games. Does that make him a bad manager, or does that mean that he was in a bad situation for a lot of those seasons? And for whatever reason, it just didn't click. Because I would go to the latter. I don't think Bob Melvin's a bad, or excuse me, not Bob Melvin. I'm going to bring him up here in a second as well. I don't think Bruce Bochy is a bad manager. Do you guys think A.J. Hinch is a pretty good manager? Won the World Series, right? Like, he did pretty well. I understand there was other stuff that was involved with that, but we all agree. A.J. Hinch, good manager, right?
Yeah.
Here's what he's done in Detroit in terms of the total wins by year. 77, 66, 78, 75. Now, their team's kind of starting to figure it out down the stretch this season, and I think A.J. Hinch is a part of it. I think he's done a good job there. But he's not winning a ton of games because he doesn't have the dudes, man.
Look no further than the guy that Cardinals fans want, Skip Schumacher, who's struggling in Miami. Guess what? He lost a lot of his dudes that helped him get to that point last season.
His season last year was eerily similar to what you're seeing this year from the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yep.
Lack of offense, starting pitching that broke down, and a bullpen that was dominant to the place where, like, they found a way to get in. And honestly, if the National League was as bad this year as it was last year for that third wild card spot, and it took as few wins as it did last year to get into the postseason, right now the St. Louis Cardinals would very much still be in contention. The Marlins made it last year with 84 wins to get into the postseason. So did the Arizona Diamondbacks. If it was that threshold, guys, we'd be still talking about this team of, like, can they get in? Because it's very much in play that they could. That's a few games over 500, man. 6 games over 500 by the end of the season. The Cardinals could still get there.
Yeah.
At this point in their season. But it's going to take like 90 to get in this year. As the third wild card team, it's just a higher threshold to be able to reach. So I'm not telling you that you have to believe that Oli Marmol is like the greatest thing since sliced bread. I don't believe that. I don't think Oli Marmol is a top 5 manager in Major League Baseball. But I think he's like 20th on their list of the biggest issues that are currently plaguing this organization. They have so many other things that need to get corrected right now. Could they make the change at the manager position? Sure. And I don't think it should shock any of us if they do. But if they decided this offseason to, like, clean house in every other area and kept the manager in place, I think there's an argument that actually we might look back on that and say it was actually smart for them to be patient with the managerial position.
Use a better phrase. Come on, man. I was just going to say Holly's never going to escape the man that hired him, and you just decide to throw be patient out there with, huh?
That's actually a good point. My bad.
Come on, man.
It was
know your audience.
It was smart for the Cardinals to be prudent.
That's just a fancy. You just used that's a Mo statement.
That sounded like a baseball guy that went to Harvard.
Yeah, you just used a thesaurus on patient.
Maybe the Cardinals should keep Ollie around.
I think you stick with it. We'll get good.
There we go. There we go. That's what we want to hear.
He's their hitting coach, and everybody wanted him run out of town.
Maybe we should go get a petting zoo. That'll help.
He's Alex. That's T-Bone. I'm BK. We've got Grant Francis back in the studio for us today. Coming up next, we're going to dive into some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN.
Alex Ferrario back with you and with my friend and insurance agent Tracy Bibb, her and her team at Allstate, taking care of the Ferrario family and can take care of you with your insurance needs. And Tracy, I got a great story for you. My brother-in-law was on the highway the other day, got into a fender bender. He sat on the side of the road for an hour and a half before he could finally get a hold of his insurance agency to figure out what to do next. That is something I told him I never deal with Tracy. She's always there for you.
Yeah, and we've got multiple ways for you to get a hold of us. You can text us. You can call us on our direct line. You can email us. You can Facebook me even if you needed to. There are ways to get a hold of us when you need us most. Also, what we're seeing in the industry right now is we are seeing home rates in Missouri for a lot of companies go up double digit. I have put that on my Facebook as well. So if you're with one of those companies, great time to talk to us. Or if you're somebody who has been required to have a 1%, 2%, 3% deductible, we don't do that on the home policies here at Allstate. A great time to give us a call and see what we can do.
Tracy is always there for you and making sure that she's helping you save money. Give her a call today. Ask for a free non-committal quote. Just tell her you heard us talk about it here on 101 ESPN, and she'll take it from there. 314-328-4260. 314-328-4260. It's no fib. You're always in great hands with the Bib. Tracy, thank you so much.
Thanks so much. Go Blues.
Greg Francis here with a SportsCenter update brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling. Cardinals got back on track last night as they won 2-1 over the Reds. They're back above 500 as Lance Lynn went 5 innings pitched after he came off the IL. Only 5 hits allowed and 1 earned run against. Today they are back and they are in action right now against the Reds over at Busch Stadium. They're taking Sonny Gray on the mound for the Cardinals, going up against Jacob Junis, and the Cardinals right now are 0-0 at the end of the second inning. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update has been brought to you by Saliga Heating and Cooling, an independent American Standard heating and air conditioning dealer.
All right, let's dive into some NFL quick hitters with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studios out at the Centene Community Ice Center, where the Blues are hosting their prospect camp this week. We were able to talk to Zach Dean, Zach Bolduc, and Dalibor Dvorský earlier today. If you missed those conversations, check them out on the podcast page after the show today. 101ESPN.com. The free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find them. They are all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Center.
But right now it's time to get in some NFL quick hitters. Alex, we do have a genuinely good game tonight. Bills versus the Dolphins. I believe you can hear that right here on 101 ESPN this evening, starting at 6:30. Big AFC East matchup, Alex. I am higher on the Bills than most people seem to be. I loved what I saw in Week 1 from Josh Allen. Don't know how sustainable it is. The guy was throwing himself around like an action hero, but he looked really good. The defense has potential, and I trust the infrastructure there. I'm not super in on the Dolphins this season. They worry me. We saw last year what it looks like in January. It feels like this is always a hot start, slow finish type of a team. What are you anticipating tonight in this game? Dolphins a 2.5-point home favorite against the Bills.
I like the Bills in this one. I think they win. I was not impressed by Miami's defense in that last game that they played, and frankly, it just felt like Tua really wasn't in the same line and step with his offense. I am a little concerned about Buffalo's offense, though. I know we talked in the offseason, like you lose Stephon Diggs, and we do this thing where it's like, oh, you lose your best receiver, and then how are you going to recover? It did feel like he did not have a whole lot of options to throw to, which is why he decided to go full-on Nicolas Cage the rest of the game, but he got a way to do it. I hope that offense takes another step and you start to see guys like Cole. I would say Buffalo close.
Heads up, we've got a little bit of an echo in our ear right now.
Buffalo covers on that one at the 2.5 points. I think they win.
Yeah, I actually like Miami in this one. Because
hey, Grant, I think we're hearing the stream back to us. Just heads up.
I think Miami in this one because when I look at the Miami Dolphins, I think that defense will play a little bit better. And I think when you look at what the offense did for them in Week 1, where you've got the big play explosiveness with Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle wasn't necessarily all that involved in that game. I think when I look at this, I look at the Miami Dolphins offense and I say, okay, they're going to be able to beat the Buffalo Bills defense in this one. And I think you're going to see that big playability, and I think that's what's going to be the thing that ends up giving them the advantage to win this one and go to 2-0.
Hey, Grant, just go ahead and give us let's go ahead and bring this on the air. We're broadcasting live at the E&B Granite Studio. Sometimes we have a little bit of technical difficulties. Grant, are we good on the air right now? Is it just the stream that's down?
No response tells us we're not
guessing
on the air.
Not currently on the air.
It's fine, man.
Text line 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you guys can hear us right now, please send us a text. Just let us know that we are currently on the air.
We are on air. Good to hear.
Sounds like we are.
YouTube, it doesn't sound like we are on.
If you are listening via the stream, I don't know if we're over there or not. But we are doing some NFL quick hitters here on 101 ESPN. All right, next thing up here. Alex, if you could have one mulligan on a preseason prediction that you had, what would be that mulligan for you after seeing these teams for 1 week? Maybe it's an overreaction, but you watch it, you're like, man, if I could take that one back, I most certainly would.
Man, it feels too early to, take back my overreaction, but I guess because my overreaction was probably the Cincinnati Bengals, and I still don't know if I overreacted on them because they worry me so much. Maybe my overreaction, if I could have the mulligan back, is I'll see a little bit more of the New York Jets because I didn't buy any stock into them. I didn't think they were going to be as good as people made them be. I also didn't know if they were going to be a playoff team, and I do know that they have the cupcake schedule over the next 4 games. Maybe they go off 4-1, and you did see some signs of life. So I guess if I had a mulligan, it would probably be the Jets one.
I like that one. I think the one for me is that the Bears can be a playoff team.
Yeah, that's one that I think a lot of people watched that first game with Caleb Williams, and they were like,
that defense was good, though, man.
I get it. And look, I think Williams will be fine ultimately. But, man, watching Week 1, I think I overestimated how much of a learning curve there's going to be. The Bears had no business in winning that football game last week. When your quarterback throws for less than 100 yards, you should be 0-1. So I think that's the one for me. And I can't remember if I even said they would make the playoffs, but I know I brought it up as they were like a X factor in the NFC
Potential.
or a sleeper team to keep an eye on. I want to walk that one back. They're not a playoff team this year. I just think there's going to be too many learning curves for Caleb Williams.
I had 2 teams that played in one game that I think I have differing thoughts on them coming out of Week 1 than what I had going in. Pittsburgh and Atlanta. I am lower on Atlanta than I expected to be, and I am now higher on Pittsburgh. And I don't like the way that Pittsburgh plays. But it is for a guy to go out there and actually do it. And it's like, man, those guys were all really good players. Now, Fabry probably hasn't become the player we expected him to be at that point, but that's more injury-related than anything else. Yeah. All of those other dudes became legit top 6 forwards for the Blues for, like, the next decade. Schwartz, Tarasenko, Thomas, Kyrou, Neighbors. Those are franchise building blocks. Is that what we're saying Dylan Holloway has the potential to be?
I mean, yes, we are. You're talking about a guy who was drafted 14th overall. And here's the other thing. This isn't a rookie. Like, I know we think he's a rookie. He's played over 100 games in the NHL already, including playoffs. He's played 89 games in the regular season and 26 games in the postseason for Edmonton. And, oh, by the way, this postseason he scored 5 goals. Think about that for a minute. He's dominated the AHL in 2 separate seasons where he played 30 games. He scored 17 goals in the minor leagues. And then he went on this year and played 63 games and scored 11 goals with the Oilers, including postseason. I think Jaden Schwartz is the perfect comp for a Dylan Holloway. You also have to remember he's not coming into a role to where he's playing on the 4th line. This is a guy that's going to come to the team, probably get second-line opportunities, and he's going to be playing on a power play. Like, they'll probably put him on the second power play unit. This is a guy that I do think, and it's why I was so excited when they got him and Broberg, because you acquired 2 guys from Edmonton that I think the Oilers were thinking, hey, we're going to have these 2 guys as building blocks around McDavid and Draisaitl because they're cheaper. The Blues just got these guys who are still relatively cheap that can both be building blocks for this team.
He's Alex Ferrario. That's Tanner Hendrickson, and I'm Brandon Kiley. Plenty more Blues talk over the course of the day, the week, and certainly over next week as well as we get into training camp. We're broadcasting live today at the Centene Community Ice Center via the E&B Granite Studios. Coming up in 15 minutes, we'll preview the Mizzou versus Boston College game with our friend Tom Carroll. Tom Freeze Pops is, as he's affectionately known as here on 101 ESPN. But coming up next, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line, and the YouTube chat is back up and running. YouTube.com
we back.
/101 ESPN STL is where you go to find it. It's time for a Fantasy Football Friday on a Thursday. If you guys have any start-sit questions, any bigger picture questions, daily fantasy, or the regular old-school season-long fantasy-wise, if you guys have any questions for us, fantasy football related, we're going to get to them next here on 101 ESPN. Alex, going into tonight's game, I love the Buffalo Bills. It's the Bills versus the Dolphins. They are on the road, and they're a 2.5-point underdog in this game. I like them on the money line personally. There's a slight uptick in the money that you can get via the Circa Sports app in Illinois. It's plus 122 over on FanDuel, plus 123 on the Circa Sports app. And, Alex, this is the kind of thing that you can expect with them. They're going to get you the best odds possible. So when I'm placing my bets, I shop around. They recommend you do that as well. Go to DraftKings, go to FanDuel. They think you're going to find you're going to win the most money possible via the Circa Sports app, and that's what I'm going to do tonight. I've got the Bills on the money line, plus 123, and I actually like the under in this game as well. A little bit of a lower scoring affair than people are expecting. Under 48 points, I'm doing that all on the Circa Sports app in Illinois.
This is why you got to download it and use it for all of your NFL college football betting needs, because they're telling you to shop around. They are so confident in that. Plus, if you ever have issues, which you really don't, but they have actual people that you're dealing with, the customer service, it's like you're dealing with people at the Circa Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. So download the app today. Get ready for Thursday Night Football, this upcoming weekend of football, and make all of your bets with Circa Sports Illinois. If you or someone you know may have a problem with gambling, call 1-800-GAMBLER or text ILGAMB to 833-234.
Wall-to-wall Blues coverage is right here. 101 ESPN is live from the Centene Community Ice Center. Brought to you by Bud Light and E&B Granite. Bernie Federko's only choice for granite countertops, cabinets, and flooring.
All right, it's time for a Fantasy Football Friday on a Thursday here on BK and Ferrario with Alex and T-Bone. I'm BK. You got BK and Ferrario here on 101 ESPN. If you guys have any fantasy football questions, go ahead and get them in right now. 314-399-9646. That is the Air Comfort Service text line. Also, the YouTube chat. The studio cams are powered by the Air Alliance team, and the YouTube chat is off and running today as well. YouTube.com/101ESPNSTL. All right, let's get to some of these boys. Let's start out with this one. Guys, would you play Jaden Reed with the Green Bay Packers, or would you go with Zay Flowers this week as a wide receiver flex option for me?
Who's the quarterback for the Packers?
Yeah, I'm going to go with anybody but the Packers this week.
Do not touch the Packers.
The only Packers I'm touching this week are
the running backs.
The only Packer that I would be starting in fantasy football.
No, you said it right the first time.
Would be Josh Jacobs. That's it. He's the only guy that I'm starting from the roster this week. It's unfortunate, but it's just the truth.
Yeah, I don't care how bad Zay Flowers' week one was. He's better than the option of what Malik Willis is going to be doing. I understand they're like, oh, Malik Willis has been prepping like crazy for this game. I don't care. He's not going to be any good. Stick with Zay Flowers.
Yeah, I'm with you. Go with Zay Flowers. I mean, think about this for a moment. Malik Willis had the easiest play call in the book last week for his one play. All you got to do is buy time and throw the ball as far as possible, and he failed at that, and he got sacked. So, yeah, play Zay Flowers.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. J.K. Dobbins was a big-time pickup this week on the waiver wire. We've got a lot of text about him. Do you guys trust J.K. Dobbins this week if you're in a half PPR or a PPR league? Do you trust him to be a starter for you, the new Chargers #1 back going up against the Panthers?
I would, because it's against the Panthers, and if I'm not mistaken, I think their top defensive lineman Brown is injured, so he's not playing. I would trust Dobbins early in the season because he doesn't have any injuries to worry about. I don't know what your other wide running backs look like, but after Dobbins is weak, and then you're going up against the Carolina Panthers, whose defense is not that interesting, I would trust Dobbins solely off of I think he's just going to run the hell out of that football.
I'm starting Dobbins pretty much no matter what. I'd be pretty surprised if you have a fantasy team that's been assembled at this point in the year that has too many running back options or wide receiver options to where I'm not starting J.K. Dobbins. He's at minimum a flex play for basically everybody.
Yeah, I think this week I would start Dobbins. After that is when I become a little bit more skeptical of it, because I think what you saw last week.
Steelers next week, that's a different conversation.
Oh, yeah, no, don't touch that.
But I mean, you look at the carry share for him, it was split 50-50 in terms of rushing attempts, 10 for him, 11 for Gus Edwards. He's not going to go 10 for like 100 every time. And you're going to be really relying on him to get a touchdown when they get in the red zone. And look, I understand the Chargers look great. I'm skeptical you're going to get that much value on J.K. Dobbins the rest of the season. This week, yes, play him. After this week, it is very much... I'm a little less skeptical of doing so.
All right, somebody else on the text line from the 618 said, guys, Kelsey, I'm a little concerned. Is he a good start this week? Should I be worried about his production after what we saw last weekend? I think you should be worried if you drafted him expecting him to have the upside that he had 2 years ago. If the hope was, hey,
dang it,
he can be the guy that he was 2 years ago, and last year was the anomaly because of the injury, I don't think that's going to be the case. I do think you're going to see a lot of games where it's like 4 for 60 and a touchdown. I think that's your hope. But with the tight end position, that's enough. So, yeah, you're starting him every week because you drafted him super high. The odds are you probably don't have anybody else on your roster that's going to give you more upside there. And you just hope, hey, he provides the floor of 4 for 40, and he's got the ceiling of scoring a touchdown or 2 every week.
If I can get 8 points from my tight end, I'm happy every single week, and Kelsey's going to get that for you. So you drafted Kelsey. You draft Kelsey. Although Mark Andrews hasn't been used as much, you draft Laporta, you draft Kittle, you don't sit them for somebody else. You go with them every single week.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. I think he's going to fall by about halfway through the season. You're going to see he's probably more of a second-tier tight end in terms of fantasy football rankings.
Playoff time, great.
Yeah, I think what you're going to see, though, is you probably shouldn't have drafted him that high. And I had worries of trying to take Kelsey that high because of what we saw last year, and they had better weapons around him. If you were hoping that he was going to be part of your three-headed monster to help you win fantasy football games, which is what I think you need to have in terms of pass catchers, not running backs, then you're probably going to be needing to find another wideout to help you out in your flex position.
All right, a lot of people are asking about Jerome Ford. How much can I trust Jerome Ford to be a guy that really puts up some big-time fantasy points? They've got the Jaguars this week. I thought the Jaguars' defense looked really good last week against the Dolphins. I think Ford's one of those guys that you're always going to be looking to upgrade from. You drafted him in your draft with the hope of, hey, can he get me through 4 weeks of playable fantasy football? And then by week 5, can I find somebody on the waiver wire that emerged as a stud that can fill into that spot in my lineup? That's kind of how I view Jerome Ford. So if you've got a better option, if you've got like Jameson Williams that you can put into the flex spot, he's got way more upside, and if you need upside in your lineup, I would side towards the big play potential of a wide receiver. But otherwise, yeah, he's a perfectly startable running back 2, running back 3 flex play type. He's kind of in that J.K. Dobbins range for me.
I was going to say, if he's my RB2, I'm like fine with it. I'm always looking to upgrade, but I don't know how you're going to be 2. If he's your RB1, you're screwed.
Yeah, that I would agree with. I think RB2 is the perfect spot. I don't want to play him at flex. My hope is you have another pass catcher.
I'd go wide receiver over him as a flex.
Yeah, if you have to play him at flex, then it tells me you've got bigger issues with your roster. But I'm okay playing him as RB2 because I think he's the perfect guy that you can put in the lineup and you can get like 8 points probably. Get a decent 8-point production. You get that touchdown maybe that gets put on there, and then you really look at it and go, okay, that ended up being a win for me this week.
All right, 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. Guys, out of these running backs, who do you like the most this week? Alexander Madison, Jalen Warren, McLaughlin, the running back for the Denver Broncos, are going up against the Steelers this week, by the way.
Ugh.
Or, who's the other one here? Alexander Madison. Yeah, those 3. Madison, Warren, McLaughlin, or Jalen Wright. Jalen Wright was the other one on here.
Who's Wright with?
The Miami Dolphins.
Yeah,
he's their number 2 back tonight because Raheem Mostert is out.
Madison is with the
Las Vegas Raiders.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say you either go Wright or Warren. But Warren's tough because you just don't know what the usage is going to be. I would probably go.
He had the injury coming out of camp, so you don't know where he's at health-wise.
I would probably go Jalen Wright because I don't want to go Madison against the Ravens, and I definitely don't want to play anybody going up against T.J. Watt.
I would actually.
If you're in a PPR league, McLaughlin's actually a pretty decent play this week.
Yeah.
He's probably going to get you like 8 points. He's going to get you a few receptions. I think he had 5 last week for like 3 yards. But if you're in a PPR league,
that's 5 nice points right there.
Woo. So, yeah, if you just need the certainty of the points, he's the guy. If you want upside, I'd go Jalen Wright. I know people are really nervous about it, but...
This is BK trying to pump his own player on fantasy football.
I know what that is.
I'm personally starting Jalen Wright tonight.
Well, because you have nothing else.
Correct, but that's the place that you're in if you have Christian McCaffrey and we're in week 1 and he's not playing again most likely this weekend. So I'm starting Jalen Wright. He's the number 2 running back for the Dolphins. They're going up against a very average Bills defense. They have big play potential at any point. He's super fast. I like Jalen Wright tonight.
So I would agree with start him. If you can pick up Madison, I wouldn't mind picking him up and kind of keeping an eye on him. Because I think when you look at that running back room with Las Vegas, Zamir White was not impressive. 13 for 44, had a fumble as well. Madison, 5 for 19, wasn't anything to write home about, but he's also a pass catcher, 4 for 43 last week. So I think he's pushing White already for that starting backfield job in Las Vegas. If he was available, or if he is available in your league, I think he's worth picking up and then maybe holding on to him for a week or two and see what happens. Because I think there's a chance he's the starting running back in Las Vegas in a couple weeks.
I lived that Madison lifestyle last year with the Vikings, and he bit me in the you-know-what way too many times.
Maybe I'm just saying it because I've got White and I'm worried.
You are.
If you picked both of these guys because you thought it was going to be a handcuff, do you want Mark Andrews or Isaiah Likely in your lineup this week?
Isaiah Likely, because not only is he going to be the go-to guy, but he's going to take down T-Bone in our fantasy league this week.
I'd go Likely.
Really?
Yeah.
I don't trust Andrews. I wonder if Likely seems to be the more versatile piece now.
I think Likely is the more explosive option, and he's a guy that they're going to in the red zone. I would go Isaiah Likely. I think there's more upside there.
He's big, and he acts as a wide receiver.
The thing that I do agree. I do wonder, though, if this is going to be the game where they say, we've got to get Andrews more involved.
It's possible.
And that's why, I'm not saying I think you guys are right, and I think it probably will end up being the correct answer. I still would be willing to play Mark Andrews because I think this is the game where they say, okay, we got to get him more involved, and it'll then open up the offense more.
With Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. If you guys have any other questions, go ahead and get them in on the text line. We'll try to answer some of those off air as well as we go along here today. Coming up next, we're talking Mizzou versus Boston College. Big game, the only top 25 matchup on Saturday this week. We're going to talk about it with Tom Carroll, our friend, former 101 ESPNer, now working up in Boston for WEEI. He joins us to break this thing down next year on 101 ESPN. Hey, it's BK for my friends over at Victory Men's Health. You know, I went in a couple of months ago now, and I told them, I said, I don't feel like I'm getting the same amount of results out of my running as I once did. I run half marathons. I've got another one coming up here in about a month or so. And I said, is there anything that you guys can help me out with? I turned 30, and I feel like the results just aren't the same as they once were for me. And they said, well, let's find out where you're at with some of your levels. For some people, that means low testosterone, potentially. For others, it's a vitamin deficiency. And you might hear that and be like, are you just taking the Fredstone or the Flintstone vitamins? No. They put you on a full plan. They help you out. They make sure that you are unlocking your inner champion. That's what they can do for you over at Victory Men's Health, whether it's weight loss goals that you want a little bit of help with, low testosterone, maybe it's erectile dysfunction. Go ahead and check them out today. They can unlock your inner champion. They've got 4 great locations across the St. Louis area. I go to the one in Town and Country, most convenient for me. You can check out all of the locations online at victorymenshealth.com. That's Victory Men's Health. They'll unlock your inner champion today, and victorymenshealth.com.
Grant Francis here with a SportsCenter update driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. Cardinals trying to win the series against the Reds today, and it looked good through 5. Sonny Gray was rolling, but in the 6th inning, he ran into some trouble as the Reds got a run to tie the game at 1, and the bases are loaded for the Reds, currently in the top of the 6th with 1 out. I'm Grant Francis. The SportsCenter update's been driven by Johnny Londoff Chevrolet and Johnny Londoff Autoplex. See them at londoff.com. Chevy, together we drive. Are you kidding me?
This is only the second time in the last 15 years that Boston College has been ranked in the top 25. Twice in a 15-year stretch. This is not some, national powerhouse program in recent years. They hire Bill O'Brien. They're 2-0. They had that massive victory in Week 1 against Florida State. Now, we don't know now if that told us more about BC or Florida State, maybe a little bit of both. But now you've got a top 25 matchup between Boston College and the Missouri Tigers. It's taking place on Saturday morning in Columbia. And joining us now via the 101 ESPN hotline to break this thing down from the BC perspective, what has been considered to be their Super Bowl for this season, is our good buddy. It's Tom Carroll. He's working for WEEI up in Boston. He's a BC insider is what I'm going to call him. And he's joining us now on BK and Ferrario. Freeze Pops, appreciate the time, man. How big is this game for Boston College this weekend?
Well, first of all, guys, great to be back. Great to hear your voice. It's huge. It's probably the biggest game of BC's existence of my lifetime. And I'm really not exaggerating, because with Bill O'Brien in the mix right now, it is just a different vibe around this program. And they want to try and capitalize on the momentum that they have right now. So being ranked 24th after not being ranked for years, and now you've got number 6 on Saturday on the slate, a team that you beat 3 years ago. I mean, it's just, we can get into that. It's just massive. I mean, BC hasn't beaten 2 top 10 teams in one season ever in the history of its program. And I know FSU, 10th rank early in the year, probably doesn't mean much. But for what this program is and where it's at with its new head coach, this game is massive.
Well, they've never done it before, Freeze Pops. You said first time for everything. Am I right?
Stop it.
That's right, baby. That's right. I love it.
Hey.
Wait, so Ferrario, you're anti-Mizzou?
No, I'm just anti-BK.
Okay, got it.
Yeah, I'm anti-BK happiness, Freeze Pops. After working with him for 3 years, it just gets to the point where you want to see him upset, and that's kind of what I want to see at this point.
This isn't where you want it, though, because this doesn't allow me to get my hopes up yet. I'm not there yet. This would be like Texas A&M beats Missouri on a last-second field.
You saw the schedule at the beginning of the season. You're like, Mizzou, 3-0 to start the year.
No, you're not wrong there.
Okay, well, first of all, very disrespectful. That sounds a lot like your coach did back in 2021. Oh, we've never recruited a player out of the state of Massachusetts. How'd that look? 41-34 overtime loss is what I believe it looked like. And yes, I did storm the field against an unranked team with my buddies because I was fired up, man. But then Jeff Hafley was our coach after that game. He continued being our coach, and he continued to be a bad coach and a disastrous human being. And we're glad that he's gone, and now we got our guy Bill O'Brien. But I don't wish for BK's sadness generally. That's not where I sit.
Well.
No, I mean, look, dude, you got hair now. You grew out the hair since we worked together. Looking great.
He was better when he was better when he was a buzz cut, Freeze Pops.
All right, Tom. So first of all, I do have a bone to pick with you about the Hafley conversation, because I picked the Packers to go to the Super Bowl, and I watched 1 week of their defense with him as the defensive coordinator, and immediately thought to myself, man, this was supposed to be an upgrade, wasn't it? And I'm not sure I feel that way.
I didn't understand. I didn't understand the conversation around Hafley heading into the NFL season. The Packers got Jeff Hafley. They're going to be great on defense. I'm like, did you watch Boston College his entire tenure there? Just because a guy is a new coach doesn't mean he's a great coach. So I did not understand the rhetoric around that. So I was kind of like quietly laughing to myself at these national NFL people just like looking for little talking points to hit, right? Like, you know how it works. You have to hit a conversation point about every team. So they just look at the recent transactions for those teams. So they're like, oh, cool, new name. I'm going to say that for my Packers point. Little did they know that Jeff Hafley is not a good coach, and we were very happy to see him go.
All right, so we're talking to Tom Carroll here on 101 ESPN. He's working for WEEI up in Boston. Previously, of course, here with 101 ESPN, one of our good buddies, and he does a bunch of work covering the Boston College team now. So you mentioned this is like the biggest game that you can remember in your entire life for BC.
Yeah.
What are people expecting this weekend? Like, it's a 17-point line. You're on the road going up against what I think is genuinely a legit top 10 team right now in Missouri. Like, they're not perfect by any stretch. They're not a top 3 team. They're not Georgia. They're not Texas. They're not Ohio State. But they're a really good football team, and they're at home, and I think they're about to start doing what they did last year where they open up the offense a bit. So for Boston College fans going into this weekend, Tom, what are they expecting to get out of this?
So I think BC fans, if you're asking just fans what they expect, they're expecting BC to go in there and play a really good competitive ball game under Bill O'Brien. He's the type of guy that's going to curtail an offense based on what the game is, right? So if Mizzou is an offense that needs to be off the field, then BC is going to try and control the ball with their running game. You know, Kai Robichaux is one of these big running backs, 6 foot, 217, just a big dude that's going to try and dictate the time of possession. Treshawn Ward, a grad transfer that's been awesome for them through 2 games, another guy that's going to be huge in the running game. And Castellanos is an awesome quarterback who can run all over the field, right? So if they can control the pace, I think that BC is going to have a chance to be really competitive in this game. Now, if you ask the local media type guys around BC, they're going to tell you that they're outmatched and that this is going to be the first game where BC kind of shows that they're not a top 25 team. But I think if you talk to a guy like me who's more fan, you know, I cover the team, right? But this is like the one team I fanboy for amongst all the teams that I cover, because BC's never been good in my whole life, right? I mean, they've had moments, right? And the Matt Ryan senior year was legendary for me. But that's why I go with we when I talk BC. And that's why you see me being a lot more positive and kind of pumping my chest out a little bit talking about the Eagles.
All right, Tom, don't get mad at me when I'm going to ask this question because you just said you're the fan of them. But where is Boston College's weakness?
Okay. They don't have any weaknesses.
Don't say nowhere.
No. Look, they have a lot of returning starters. So through 2 games, it's hard for me to say this is the thing that they've been the worst at, right?
Throwing the football, the forward pass, Tom.
Yeah, so, what I was going to say
See what I'm talking about, Tom? You got to root against his sadness.
Yeah, come on, dude. Look, they haven't thrown the ball in their one game against a team that wasn't FCS. They didn't throw the ball much, right? They tried to control the clock against FSU, and they did that super effectively all the way to a win. So I guess if I have to point to one thing at this point, I would say that throwing the ball is not a strength, but last week against Duquesne, they were throwing the ball all over the place. But what does that mean when you're playing Duquesne? I don't know. But Lewis Bond and Jaden Skeet are 2 really, really talented receivers, and those are going to be 2 guys that Mizzou is going to really have to key in on if they don't want BC to have a complete offensive game.
All right, final question. Tom Carroll's our guest here on 101 ESPN, one of our good buddies doing work for WEEI up in Boston. He's joining us to help us preview this Boston College versus Mizzou matchup. I do want to ask about Bill O'Brien. I find him to be fascinating, man. He was a really good college coach the last time that we saw him at Penn State. He was dealt an unbelievably difficult hand coming off of the whole Paterno situation that took place there, and he kept things on the rails somehow for them. And that alone was like, I thought the program was about to go into hell, and he won 8 games in 2012 and then, of course, went to the NFL. Is this a long-term stay for him? Like, do you think he wants to be at Boston College for the long term, or is this a stepping stone for him to get back to another program like a Penn State, in your opinion?
So from what I've heard, and look, you can take this with a grain of salt because it's from people within the BC program, is that the only job that he would leave BC for would be to be the coach of the New England Patriots.
Oh, wow.
So he's in there for the long haul. He's a local guy. He sees this as like a legacy type job. If he can turn this program around and make them a program that matters to people locally, then that's a huge win for him, because BC is definitely a second-class citizen when it comes to sports in Boston. Boston is a pro sports town. St. Louis fans are well acquainted with the Boston professional sports teams, right? So I had to take a shot there on the way out. Although you guys got our number in 2019, I remember that not so fondly.
I still taste Brad Marchand's tears, Freeze Pops.
You know, I've never understood this in Ferrario. I remember being in the press box on banner night at Enterprise when they put Marchand up on the Jumbotron crying, and everyone's like, aha, yeah. It's like, guys, you beat us. Like, well, I don't understand why you guys hate Marchand so much for crying when he lost in Game 7 at home. Wouldn't you cry too? Like, give this guy a break.
Not at all. Not at all. You know what it is, Freeze Pops? It's because we've, as Blues fans, suffered through 50-plus years of looking at that damn picture of Picard getting tripped by Bobby Orr in front of the Boston Bruins net, and it's just been annoying. And so finally, 52-plus years later, you get that retribution, and you take a poster of Brad Marchand, and we'll post it for the next 50 years.
Okay, fine. I'll give that to you. I mean, congrats.
Yes!
You got your cup. How are you guys doing lately? I just want to check in on the state of the Blues.
Hey, man, don't worry about that.
Don't worry about that, man. Future's bright.
And I cannot emphasize this enough. Worry about it. Hey, Tom, appreciate the time, man. Great to catch up. We'll be watching this game on Saturday. Can't wait for the Tigers to cover the 17-point spread. We'll talk with you again soon, my friend.
Wow. I'm never talking to you again.
Yeah, ice cold. I'll celebrate with you when BC wins and BK sadness, Freeze Pops.
All right, love you, boys. See ya.
See you, man.
Take it easy. That's Tom Carroll. Works for WEEI up in Boston. One of the best in the business. One of my best friends. Love the guy. I went up to his wedding a couple of years ago. That was the trip that I was gone for like 3 weeks for.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
It was for Tom's wedding.
I wasn't invited, unfortunately.
Rhode Island. He didn't want you there. He knew that you would just eat the dinner and go home.
Hey, he ain't wrong there.
Honestly, true.
He ain't wrong there.
He had to know.
No, when I filled in on shows when I first got the job in 2019, Freeze Pops, I'd fill in for Bernie a couple of times, and he was my producer. He saw the glory days of Ferrario when he had no kids, and he was like, yeah, let's party it up. And then a year later, it was like, nope, bedtime at 9.
And then COVID happened. He's Alex, that's T-Bone, I'm VK. Coming up next, we'll hit the rewind here on 101 ESPN.
Let's run it back with a daily rewind on BK and Ferrario. Brought to you by Gloria Loom, your home sold guaranteed realty. Selling your home begins at GloriaHasTheBuyers.com.
Join 101 ESPN for the second annual Blues and Brews. It's coming up on Friday evening, September the 20th. That's next Friday, 1 week from tomorrow at the Anheuser-Busch Brewery. You can get fired up for the Blues season. We're already doing that out here at the Prospect Showcase Camp that's taking place today at the Centene Community Ice Center. But next week, we'll continue doing so at Blues and Brews. Plus, you got appearances by Blues players, alumni, food trucks, so much more. Tickets are just $20. Or right now, you can win your pair of tickets on BK and Ferrario. 314-399-9646 is the Air Comfort Service text line. If you are texter number 101 and you have the correct answer to the following question, you're getting that pair of tickets to Blues and Brews. Earlier today, Alex during the junk drawer explained what he found in his attic. What did he find? What did he see up in his attic yesterday? If you have the correct answer, you are texter number 101. You are getting that pair of tickets to Blues and Brews. All right, Alex, to finish out the show today, the Cardinals are in action currently. They are up 2-1 against the Cincinnati Reds. It was a really good start by Sonny Gray. He took a perfect game, I think, into the fourth inning, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I think he was perfect through 5.
Overall, it finished with 2 hits, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, and just 1 earned run allowed. Alex, what are your emotions that you're feeling as you're watching kind of the last 15, 20 games of this season, especially as you see them get better pitching performances and wins down the stretch? Is it maddening at all to you? Like, if they win 2 out of 3 in the series against Cincinnati, how frustrating is this right now, knowing what their opportunity was that they lost out on?
It's pretty high in terms of frustration. I was going to say, like, I'm not mad about it. I think it's more frustrating that this team always finds the way to be out of the playoff conversation, but then go on a hot streak and then finish well. And what concerns me about this team is they're going to do what they've done in the past, where they see a hot streak at the end of the season, they see significant improvement and say, well, we were right there. We just need to improve in a certain area and we'll be fine. And the improvements are bringing in veterans to not make any significant change. So I think the frustration's there because for a stretch in the early portion of the season, you saw a team that was like, yeah, this team actually could be in the playoffs and maybe do some type of damage, because you never know what happens. And then you'll see it at the end of the season, but people seem to forget that middle sandwich of where it was so bad that you need to make significant changes so that stops happening, and the Cardinals just don't do it. That's where the frustration comes into play.
I think my frustration is who is having the success right now. Like, as you look at the OPS for the month of September, the guys that are leading the team right now are the veterans. Like, it's Carpenter in a very small sample size, and then it's Goldie and Arenado. Like, Donovan has been really good in the month of September as well. It's the guys that you thought were going to lead you coming into the season that got off to really slow starts, and because they got Nootbaar's another one of those. Because they got off to such significant slow starts, it put you so far behind the 8 ball that you were never able to fully recover. And I think they had to expend so much energy trying to get back into this race that they were just shot by the time they got to the stretch run, and they had no real opportunity to be able to go on another run down the stretch. So that to me is what's so frustrating, is like they missed their chance because the guys that they needed to perform couldn't, and the young guys were having to pick up where they left off. And now you're seeing some of those guys perform. It's like, man, if you just could have had a more stabilized season, and this team could have been in the postseason mix right now.
And you're actually frustrated because you know that those veterans that were bad for a majority of the season that are good now are going to be back next year.
See, I don't even find myself frustrated. I'm actually more impressed that they're above 500 still. And, like, it doesn't mean anything. It's more of like a participation sticker at this point. But this roster was too flawed. It was always too flawed that they were never going to be a playoff team, in my opinion.
The Goldie thing is what makes me most frustrated.
Because you know he's going to be back next year.
I see him, and I just go, that's an old player that will have one good month, and it just happens to be at the end.
I agree. I know that that's not necessarily what the Cardinals see.
Cardinals see,
well, that's fair.
Cardinals see future red jacket.
That's 100% fair.
We all see the exact same thing, but what I know is happening right now is justification. We can justify bringing him back because of what we saw in August and September. And if that ends up being the case, it's going to be a frustrating and long offseason for us here in St. Louis. For Alex Ferrario and Tanner Hendrickson, I'm Brandon Kiley. Shout out to the Blues for getting us some of their prospects. We talked to Dalibor Dvorský. We talked to Zach Bolduc and Zach Dean earlier today. If you missed any of those conversations, be sure to check them out on the podcast page. 101ESPN.com and the free 101 ESPN app is where you go to find it. It's all presented by
Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers.
Shout out also to Grant Francis, who did a fantastic job for us back in the studio. There was a lot going on today with the stream, with everything going on. So huge thanks to him and to the engineers for getting all of that solved for us. We will talk to you guys tomorrow at 11 a.m. The Fast Lane's coming up next year on 101 ESPN.